Well, let's just begin, yeah? Let's just begin. Because that is what we're here for, right? We just begin. We just begin.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hello. We have no name yet. We have a name. But we don't have a name for our show.
Well, we've actually got several names, but we haven't kind of settled on anything yet.
No.
So the idea behind all of this is that me, Sonia, and my beautiful, beautiful friend Joyce and fellow artist Joyce, we're going to sit down on a regular basis and we're going to have a chat, because we've been having these chats for a while now, and we realised that actually there's quite a lot of value to be had in the conversations that we have together. And so being able to sort of sit down and record them, even if it's just for ourselves, that's a really, really valuable resource. So we thought we'll do that and we'll share it and we'll see what happens. So where were we going to start? Joyce, do you want to introduce yourself? Let's just introduce ourselves.
Well, so Sonia and I know each other. We've met back in Christchurch many years ago. And so I am Joyce van der Lely. I'm originally from Holland. I moved to New Zealand in 1995, and we moved to Christchurch. For those of you that have never seen me online, but sometimes you may have, encountered me on events and summits and stuff, but then but I came from Holland to Christchurch in 1995, and to start a new life, a better quality of life. Funny thing, it's very easy to recreate your hamster wheel. So that is what I did in no time. During those years, I got to know Sonia through a acting class. And I got into the acting class because of a friend of mine, actually the mother of a friend of my son from school. They went to acting class, the boys went to acting class, and then the mum apparently used to do it. And so she sort of, made me come along and encouraged me to come along. And so that's where I met you, right? That's where I met you. I think at that time I had a part-time job at the Dutch consulate, and I was teaching art classes at home to school-aged kids mostly, and I had some evening classes for moms. And then I don't know, I think I stopped going to the acting classes, and then the earthquakes happened, and then I moved, and then somehow we kept in touch.
Yeah, we did.
I know that was before.
Definitely. Yeah,
because that was before you actually started with your jewelry, or you had just started with your jewelry. You had that dream, right? You had that dream then. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and it was, and I mean, the earthquakes were a catalyst for a lot of things, because the drama side of things, the drama that sort of, I think we had about a year, did we? Maybe about a year before doing that adults acting class before
we did two shows. We did two shows. I think it was before that. Yeah, it must have been because we had performances and everything. So nothing ever got cancelled. So it was still solid.
Yeah, it was, because we were in the old arts centre, I think, here in Christchurch. So I think that's where one of the performances was, and of course the arts centre got absolutely, what's the technical term, munted?
Munted, yeah. And I think actually the building where we had the classes, I think that's all gone. Yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we were able to kind of keep in touch past that earthquake. I think the earthquakes were a real catalyst for not just you and I, but certainly for a lot of people. I mean, they forced us to it forced me to look at my mortality, I suppose, but really looking at it and going, what I was, that hamster wheel thing, like, what I was doing, is that, like, if I were to die right now, would that be what I want my legacy to be? And the answer was a resounding nah. So everything sort of, it really was a massive catalyst for changing, and it was kind of like a state of, well, if not now, then when are you going to do that?
And really, and that makes you think like, well, something like that, you know, an event like that, or something that happens in your life big like that. It makes you just realize now is the best time to do whatever you want, right? Yeah. So don't hold back. Don't hold something for only then when I have that in place, then I will do this. No, you just have to do it, right? You just have to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't save it for a rainy day or a sunny day or a special occasion, because you know they may not come, or they might not come exactly when you want them to come. So you don't wait. Just do.
Yeah. I think that is one of the things that really came for me. Well, because I was in town and I had to walk back home. I just, so many things went through my head, and it was like, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting for to do the thing that I'm dreaming about, really? Is it acknowledgement for somebody, or is it a permission? It's often that permission, like, oh, I cannot do it yet because I need to get these ducks in a row or whatever, or I have to first get this thing. You hear it so often, right? And those things really went through my mind, and I thought, no, stuff it. I'm sorry. But yeah, like, I'm just gonna be creative, full stop, 100%, and I'm just gonna make it work for me, for my life, for my income, for my source of income, right? It needs to be possible. It needs to be possible. Let's just throw out all the stories that other people want to try and impose and tell you about the thing that you're dreaming about. Because really, for that, you can actually find in the world, with all the so many billion, 8 billion we have now?
Yeah, that's it.
With all those people in the world, you can find as many examples where it does work than where it doesn't work. But I don't know why we are always so focused on the things that failed.
Yeah, I think there's a level, I guess, of fear, and it's not necessarily our own fears, because I think if we were to really dive into what truly makes us happy and what sparks our wonder and our awe and our creativity, then there's no fear in that place. It's just do. But we don't want to disappoint people, and we don't want, especially the people that we love. And there's a lot of conditioning that goes on. And I think also, I don't know about you, but if you're in the creative arts, in whatever form that takes, there's an expectation. Well, there's a rhetoric, there's a storytelling that goes on. But if you're in the creative arts, there's no money to be made from that space. You can't make a living. It's something, it's indulgent, and it's a hobby, and it's not real. It's not real work.
No, it's fringe. It's not. It's the fringe things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you've kind of got to, you have all of that going on. And I know for myself, because when the earthquakes happened, I had a business. I had actually been training. I did I recently graduated with a PhD in civil engineering, and I was working and creating a business, a consultancy, working in risk and resilience, ironically. And we lost our business. We lost everything, and I lost most of my savings in the aftermath of the earthquake. And so for me, I had to get a job. I was a single mum, supporting my family. I had to go and get a job, and I got a job. I started out with just a retail management role, and then I worked in customer services and corporate sales. And it was really interesting. Like, as I looked at it, I watched the amount of creativity that I had in my day-to-day work dwindle. It started out with a little bit of creativity, and then it kind of just tanked. And by the time, so that was post-quake, and by the time I got to, I don't know, maybe 4 years after the earthquakes, which was 2011. 2011 is when the earthquakes happened. 2010, 2011. I had got to a point where there was like almost zero creativity in my life, and I was so desperately unhappy, and I had to do something. I was desperate, And so I actually started where the jewelry, I make jewelry for a living. Where jewelry came in, I actually couldn't tell you how it became jewelry making. I've always been creative and wanted to be an artist for sure, but didn't really have jewelry making on the radar. I had zero training. I just needed to make stuff. I needed to do something tangible in the creative realm. And so I did, and it made me happy. It fulfilled something in me that I wasn't really consciously aware had been missing. And it sort of steamrolled from there. But I actually had to get out of my own way. The day that I decided that I was going to quit my day job and take this role on full time, was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I was the sole income earner in my family. If I didn't make it work, it wasn't going to work. And I was going to have to go out and get a job. And, you know, the one thing I realized about myself is that I'm a really, really crap employee.
I think that is one of the first things that you notice is when you're, well, I mean, I can work hard, right? I can work hard for an employer and then for a certain amount of time, and then I become a bit rebellious because I see other things that I would do differently if I was running that business, you know? So that's the thing, right? You go like, oh, and then it gets hard. Yeah. So I think in that way, then I am also not a very good employee. Yeah.
I worked out quite early on in my creative journey that I probably wouldn't employ me. I wouldn't employ me, but I was a great boss.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. So because you haven't really introduced yourself, actually, you know, you tell a little bit of things, but so because you used to do a very technical job before, right? I remember that when I met you, that you were in a very male-dominated area of work. Yeah.
So I guess going back, when I was at high school, at school in general, I wanted to do art. Art was everything to me. Specifically painting and graphic design. But I failed art at high school in the exams that we had for art, and I didn't get into graphic design school. So I ended up at university doing geology, of all things, earth sciences. Really good at it, and I really enjoyed it. And it took me, I ended up becoming one of the only women at that point in time, certainly in New Zealand, and there weren't many around the world, female geotechnical engineer or geotechnical scientist. And so I worked all around the world, specifically building tunnels. That was what I did. I worked on rock supports and site stability for tunnels. And so it was
different.
Very different. Yeah, it was very like I actually quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the science side, but I've got quite a scientific engineering kind of bent to my brain, and I do enjoy that, but it wasn't sustainable for me, and especially after I had my son, it wasn't something that I could do long term and didn't want to do long term. So I started making jewelry. That was the creative outlet I found, and specifically making jewelry from recycled materials. So that post-quake environment here in Christchurch, I'm based in Christchurch still. There was and you know this, Joyce, you saw it firsthand as well, but there was so much destruction of property, of things, of buildings, not just people and their lives, but physical parts of our community. And to me, it was absolutely devastating, the amount of beautiful materials, amazing native timbers, and all these materials that were just literally getting trashed. And so I used to say I made beautiful things out of broken pieces. And I guess what I didn't really realize and appreciate at that point was that probably that was my life. I was learning how to make beautiful things out of broken pieces, and that's kind of been the theme right the way through.
Yeah. And I love that. And I remember when I met you and when you were talking about, that was then before the earthquakes here. See, so you carried that through, because when I met you and you explained that you wanted to start up something, I think you already were thinking about jewelry then with recycled wood. You were thinking of something with recycled wood. And because I remember that. And then, you know, as we kept in touch and you started to make these really beautiful metal jewelry, you know, or well, the combination and everything, I thought like, wow, you know, you've actually really pulled your dream through and forward. Even, you know, you expanded on the first idea. And I love that. I love journeys. I love journeys and adventures. And I think like you really took on an adventure.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you too. So I mean, you are a storyteller. You're a magician. You're an alchemist and a storyteller.
Alchemist, you are the real
well.
alchemist. When I see your videos, you know, where you just, I love that. I love that. If you haven't seen any of Sonia's videos, you have to check her Instagram, because she puts these amazing reels and videos on there where she quickly, you know, it's like really fast, but you see the metal melt and you see the metal being poured and then you see the rings come out. It's like, I just love that. I think it's amazing. So I do my alchemy, art alchemy kind of stuff in a slightly different way. But yes, I believe that we create from discarded or remnants, or anyway it's sustainable, right? I love to work with sustainable substrates. If I have a choice, I always choose to work with sustainable resources, because it makes me feel better, you know? Yeah.
It's like you're contributing rather than taking. You're giving something rather than taking something away.
Yeah, and you keep something that is already there in the circle, in the you know, in the space, in the spiral. I think it's a spiral. What I take, I add to, and then it sort of levels up. At least that's how I like to see it. Like, it levels up, you know, I add my energy to it. I guess I'm an energy worker. I don't know. Titles, I don't know. What do you call yourself? Artist? You know, what am I?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But you and spirals, like, so that's almost a symbol for you, though, isn't it? The spiral.
Yes, and look, you made me some. Yes, I love spirals. So here you go. So this is one of, that's I love the simplicity and the potential of this. I can hang things from it. It's a spiral. I don't need any closure things. It just pokes through, like boom, it's in, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody compliments me on them, you know, and I think like, yes, it's like spirals. Oh, I love spirals. You love spirals too.
Yeah, I do. And spirals, I have a Te Ao Māori history, whakapapa, which means your genealogy. And so from my ancestral perspective in Te Ao Māori, or the world of Māori thought and belief, spirals represent that. It's called the koru, 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 and the koru represents the cycle of rebirth. And so it's this endless beginning, and because a spiral it starts in a point, but it comes around full circle, and then it comes around full circle again.
It's never ending.
So it's never ending, and so it's this continual cycle of death and rebirth and recreation, and I think that's probably somewhere where you and I really connect.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like you could say a spiral is almost like a phoenix, right? There's an infinite possibility of being reborn or restarting or recalibrating and everything, reignite everything. Because we have a lot of things that we think we think about the same things. It doesn't mean like we're thinking about the same thing in similar ways. Maybe, you know, we are different people, but we connect on certain things. We definitely do connect, and we're like sisters in that way.
Yeah,
I believe,
100%.
you know. And
Yep.
that is with, I have a few other connections like that in other places in the world, where we are different people. You know, we come from different places. We had different upbringing. We probably think about a lot of things differently. And then there are a lot of things where we sort of interlock. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I think, I always believe that if we can find those connections, they're precious connections. And if we can find those connections and keep them alive and sparking, then that's the web that we can build around our Mother Earth, right?
Yeah, totally, totally. I see it as I love the concept of a web. The concept was introduced to me several years ago via a legend, if you like. A legend originates in Asia of the red thread, and the red thread is about destined souls who are linked forever through time and space. And you can stretch or you can twist or knot that thread, but you can never actually break it.
Yeah.
And I've come to understand it as much about a romantic connection, but more it's about that connection that we have with one another. We are all connected to one another, and we're connected to Mother Earth, to Papa Tuanuku as well. And for me, I see it as a tapestry. And when you start pulling the threads of the tapestry, you realize that it's one thread. It's all one thread. We're just an expression of that tapestry along that one thread, but we're all connected amongst it.
Yeah, I love this. See, you're starting to talk about a tapestry. Those that know me and have heard me speak before, or have heard me, you know, worked with me before, they know that I'm always talking about weaving magic carpets to take you to your dream, you know, or weaving a magic cloak to keep you safe. It's like that, right? Threads, strands, cords. Yeah, I can just I always visualize things. That's maybe the storyteller in me. You know, I always visualize things, and I can just see that it's everybody weaves their own tapestry.
Magic.
Yeah, their own magic. Yeah, because it's magic. Yeah, it is magic.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
We are magical. Just admit it. We are. You know, and I'm talking.
I know it. You know it.
To whoever ever once sees this, you know, you are magical too. Yeah, just believe that. Really trust that, because we are. You know, and people just seem to lose or not lose, but have forgotten that. You know, forgotten that, or put it somewhere behind a door or locked away or something. Just open up your own magic, I think. That's another, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, like just begin doing the things that, you know, just start, just do, and just know that you are magic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's kind of sort of almost brings us full circle, really, doesn't it? Because we started out by talking about this, you know, just you know, what holds you back from doing the things that you truly love, or the dreams that you have, and from actually taking action. And really, when you sort of start to look at that tapestry and realize there's really nothing to be afraid of, because we are all connected. And when you tap into that connection, be it with one another, with similar souls, like sisterhood, like yourself and you and me, with the elemental forces, with the earth, with the sky, with the universal, whatever you want to label it as. But when you realize that we are all magical elements within that giant tapestry, within that enormous eternal thread of life and creativity and being, when we do that, then there's no need to fear, because you can't get it wrong. You can change it, and you can mold it to what you want it to be, and that can change too. You know, when I started out with my creative journey is not where I am today, and it won't be where I am next year. It'll be
No.
somewhere different. That's exciting. That's part of that
And
adventure.
that's also why we started
Starting.
talking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, like when we started having these conversations, it was like, sometimes we get stuck too. We, even though like create our business, we are both one woman shows in our business, right?
Yep.
And creative, and so our businesses are creative based, and that's a challenge in itself. It both our businesses are our source of income and our livelihoods,
That's
and
right.
and then you think like, well, you've made it, right? You've made your hobby your job. How that's how people say it, like, oh, you're so lucky you've made. But then on top of that, that doesn't mean that every day is a great day, because we also we also still get stuck, and we also still start doubting ourselves, and we have good days and bad days, even though every day feels like playing. It feels like a playground in a way, and still you have that. And so that is also why we started talking, right? To try and support each other through that a little bit as well, and say like, hey, you feel that, or you experience that. And so that is also, that's also one of the reasons why we thought we'll record it, because then you can just go back and listen again to your own wise words.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, isn't it? Because you don't appreciate just how much wisdom you have, and that's why I journal, because and I read back through my journals, because sometimes I'll read things, or I will write things and then go back and read it and go, oh my God, like I knew what I was talking about back then. Why was I not listening to myself back then? So we do have this innate wisdom, and yet sometimes we need a vehicle to help bring it out. Be that our creativity, be that our connections, whatever it is, be it being out in nature and being, in awe of what's around us, whatever it is that draws that wisdom out of us. It's in us, and trusting it is an enormous leap of faith, I think.
I think it is like, we are trained to look outside for approval and permission and validation. We are so trained to do that and look for that outside of us, that we have completely forgotten to look within and find that actually it's already there. How, like, so cliche, everybody always says, like, when you hear personal development and all that, it's like, oh, everything is inside of you, and it's like, oh, really? But it truly is, because if you want to make a choice, if you can choose between two things, make your choice. Right. You just look at the two things and you go like, which one do I like better? So I choose that. Why is it that we always somehow need to validate that, with your sister or a friend or a partner or a parent? It's like, what do you think? I think I'll have this red one. What do you think? So what if you think you need to have the red one, then get the red one, and not the blue one. But we always seem to just bounce that ball off and want to hear this validation or permission, and I think that is the thing. Like, we don't trust ourselves enough. I mean, I do a lot of work and work on it, so I do trust myself a lot more, and still it comes up sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That trust thing is a huge thing, and you said it before about the that the forgetting, that we forget to trust ourselves, or we forget. It is like a cycle, and I come back to that, the spiral. It is like this constant forgetting, and then remembering, and then forgetting again, remembering, and every time you come back to that remembering space, you're remembering just that little bit more, and you're trusting that little bit more, and you're not coming back round to the same place. You're coming back round with a whole different world of experience and knowledge and understanding. And it's a little bit like, for me personally, I live here at the beach, and I know, Joyce, you live pretty close to the ocean as well, and the ocean is important for both of us. And I kind of envisage it in my mind like the ebb and flow of the tides or
Yeah.
the waves crashing on the beach. You know, it's never the same wave. You know, if you look at it, it's constant ebb and flow, crash, crash, crash of the waves, but it's never the same wave, and it never comes in exactly the same way, even though it's constant. It's just this constant.
Yeah, even
And
though
so
it's the same
like that for
water, you
us.
could say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that for us. And so every time, I guess this is where the trust comes in. Is like every time you ebb and then you flow again, you're coming back with something different, something new,
Yeah.
some new understanding, and allowing yourself that without needing to have it validated through external sources, because everything that you need you're bringing with you, which is the irony, isn't it?
Yeah. And I love that wave, the ebb and the flow as well, because my creating is not always constant, you know? And so that is the thing with creative businesses. How do you bring a constant in? Because when it is your livelihood, when it is your source of income, you need to create something that becomes like a regular thing that comes in, like you have a regular flow. So you need to think outside of the box, right? So for anybody that ever sees this and thinks about running a creative business, you need to find your own rhythm. I feel like I have stopped pursuing that I, for instance, get $1,000 a week in, you know? Yep. If I get 4,000 a month in, it's the same. It's also regular, you know. If it yep. means that there's $4,000 coming in one week or one day, and then there is a whole lot of nothing. That yep. is, and then it comes back again. That is a regularity. That's a rhythm as well. So I think that I've accepted that my rhythm may be different than the rhythm of the supermarket or the rhythm of the store, or, you know, so my rhythm is different and your rhythm will be different. And it depends on what you create. It depends on how you bring it out. It depends on all that. And that is okay. And
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of see it as like it's almost seasonal. And I guess we're conditioned, you know, we've come through the workforce, if you like, where we've been employees. And so you have that regular income. So, but it doesn't make any sense really when you think about it. If you're moving into your own business, especially in a creative business, that you have this regular wage coming in. It doesn't necessarily work. Great if it does, fantastic, good for you if it does. But for me personally, it doesn't work that way. And for me, it works. It's almost a seasonal thing. And so I have periods where and I can see, I've been in it long enough now that I can see, and I trust it.
Yeah.
I can trust
that. Trust.
It's trust, coming back to the trust thing. And, you know, I can trust that if things are financially tight today, tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, the beauty of being in a creative business and being a business owner, especially in this industry, is that you can turn around and go, okay, well, I can change it. I can change it like that. What do I want? What do I want? How do I want to show up in the world, in my business, in front of my audience tomorrow? How's that going to look? What do I want it to be? And that in itself is creative. So I've learned to try. It really does come back to that trust thing again, and trusting that
it's such a
having
big
the
thing,
perseverance, and having the trust, and having the faith that it's actually everything's okay. It's actually going to be okay. Everything is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know, if we can do it, you know, anybody can do it, really.
100%.
That's the thing, right? A lot of people see people like us go like, oh, I wish I could do that, but oh, she must have had all the luck in the world, da 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 da. And you know, it really isn't. It really isn't.
No, it's definitely not. I think, you know, really, it's less about luck and it's more about persistence. It's more about being content to, well, no, that's not the right word. Being persistent. Like I always envisage it. I guess coming from a looking at natural resources as a geologist, we always talked, you know, learned a lot about the mining industry and the mining of precious metals and gems and things like that. And there were so many stories of, you know, the miner who was digging and digging and digging, and then they had nothing and nothing and nothing, and then they stopped. And then the next person that came through went the next 10 meters in the digging, and there was the treasure. It was like right there, and it's like, are you going to give up? Like, you know, at what point are you going to give up, or are you going to just find a way and persist and trust that actually this is the pathway that you're choosing? You choose this pathway. There's no right or wrong, but if you want it, then choose it and stick with it.
Yeah, I truly believe that, like, every day I choose creativity or creating over sitting behind, you know, sitting in an office or something like that. So the first thing is, what makes me happy today? What makes me happy today? And that's what I'll do. And of course I have, you know, of course, I mean, I have clients, I teach workshops and classes and stuff like that. And so they are scheduled into my calendar, and we cannot avoid, you know, even if you wanted to, we cannot avoid that our society is built around clocks and calendars and time and all that. So those are just the things that are. And then with the remaining time that I have, every time I choose, I make a choice what makes me happy at that moment. And what makes me happy can be like cooking a really nice meal so that I can have yummy food inside, you know, in my belly. Or it can be just sitting and reading a book, or chatting to you, or painting and writing in my journal. And every time you make a choice. And I think that if you start with happiness, because if you feel happy, it makes a lot of things so much easier, and it makes it easier for other people as well. Because if they encounter you and you're happy, you're a much nicer person to be around.
That's so true. It's so true. But isn't that interesting though? Because what you've said is happiness is a choice. You know, and I think this is where we're sort of, society conditions us, or we are conditioned, or allow ourselves to be conditioned to think that if I can just get to there, then I'll be happy, or if I can just have that, then I'll be happy, if I can do this, I'll be happy. Actually, it's the other way around. It's like, I can choose to be happy. I'm going to choose to be happy and identify and then pursue the things that make me happy. I'm not going to wait for them. I'm not going to be, I'm happy, and then I'm choosing the way that my life is going to look. It's not the other way around. So I never feel like, people always say, God, Sonia, you've always got so much on the go. There's always something going on with you, and you know, you're never short of an idea. It's like, well, no, because I'm choosing that. That is the life that I choose, because that life makes me happy. I am a happy person when I am able to do that. And so I will choose to do all the things that enable that or allow that to come into my life. The story.
You know what I started to do? I started to see my inner self, my inner being as space with doors. And so I like open doors. And so if I have the door to happiness open, then that light can shine in. And if I have that door to possibilities and abundance and whatever, abundance in everything, abundance in ideas, abundance in inspiration, abundance in happiness, you know, just open the door. So let it flood, let it come, just flood through me, and I'll just do whatever, you know. And then I have these, like, then the sparks can come out everywhere, you know, where it's like, you know, when you say people that laugh, their eyes spark. I think it definitely is that, like, happiness sparks. And so any energetic abundance that you allow to come through you, or from your inner beautiful wisdom magical self, if you could visualize that would spark. It would spark from your eyes, it would spark from your fingers, it would spark from your toes. You know, you look at dancers, it's almost like their magic when they jump and all that.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, like that. It's magical. It's magic.
magic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's back to the alchemy thing again. It's absolutely magical. I totally agree. It's and I think of a quote that I think it was Leonard Cohen about where the broken parts are where the light can come in.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because one of the things that I've had to really sort of sit with in the last, well, as I've gone on this journey with having a creative business, is when I first started making jewelry, I wanted everything to be perfect. Like I wanted the perfect polish and I wanted the perfect shape, and almost to the point where I wanted it to look as manufactured as it possibly could. And even though I was making things by hand, and of course I could never get there. And
No.
I was constantly doubting my abilities until I realized that the perfection lay in the imperfection, and that the real beauty of the pieces that I made came because I was imperfect, and they were going to people who were imperfect. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And as you've just said, you know, the spark, the magic, the alchemy,
Yeah.
that comes through where the bits are broken, because that's
Yeah.
where the light can come through.
Yeah.
And that's a truly, truly magical thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the Japanese have their mending, you know, where they mend with gold. I love that too. You know, definitely the uneven surfaces is where the light can play as well.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, reflect in different ways. If it's just a smooth surface, oh gosh, I've had students in my art studio that attempted to paint, and they just kept you know, and I said, what are you trying to do? And really what they wanted to do was Photoshop a paint bucket, you know, like that. They wanted to have the sky that even. I said, you're never ever going to, you know, achieve that with a brush. You need to do that digitally, and then you just do your paint bucket, bloop, it's blue, you know. But if you start painting with a brush, you will always have brush strokes, and people go to you know, you go to view paintings because of those brush strokes, because that's where the energy, that's where the emotion, that's where everything is, you know. Yeah. It's just strange like that. And I think, yeah, I think definitely creatives and artists will understand this, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. And I'd love for it to sort of move beyond just, you know, artists understanding this, because it's such a metaphor for life. It's such a beautiful beautiful way to allow yourself to be in the world, is to allow the perfection of the imperfection and the beauty of that is, you know, we talk about Mother Nature. When you go and see a sunrise or a sunset, or you go and watch the ocean or see the mountains and the forest, there's no such thing as perfect. Like what does that even mean? It's not real. There is no such thing. Even the sun, like you look at the sun and you go, it's a perfect circle. Well, actually, no, it's not. The closer you get to it, it's not a perfect circle. It's, you know, it's textured, and there's troughs and hollows, and nothing's perfect. Like
I think it is perfect. Perfection is in the eye of the beholder, right? When it's a perfect day, you look, I can go out and say, hey, it's a perfect day because I want to go to the beach. Or I can say, hey, it's a perfect day because I just planted my seeds and I need rain. So then the clouds and the rain is perfect because I need that at that moment. So for me, that makes that a perfect day. It's you know, sometimes, I mean, I live on the opposite. This is a good example. I grew up in the Northern Hemisphere. Now I live on the Southern Hemisphere. So, you know, when it is Christmas time here and it's supposed to be summer, when it is a rainy day, I say it's perfect for Christmas. Yeah, it's perfect for my Christmas because it makes me feel more Christmassy than when the day is totally sunny and light. And when it's overcast and rainy, it's a bit darker and it gets, you know, and that's perfect for Christmas, you know. So it's so in, for each person it's different, and it's also for each situation it's different. So what is perfection? Yeah, there you go. So there's no perfection. Perfection is for how you see it, how you feel it. I think it has a lot to do with emotion. Yeah. And then we're back to the storytelling. Yeah.
Maybe it's less about how you see it and more about how you feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm totally a feeling person. I'm totally a feeling person, which is, which is the challenge when you talk with more business oriented people, because they see everything very different. They don't add feeling into the mix. And for me, feeling is a huge part of my mix. And so it also needs to be a huge part of my business's mix. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like my business. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that is a lot of creatives struggle with that, or are challenged with that, simply because that is outside of the norm, of that's how you do business, and that's how businesses are supposed to run, and that's how businesses are, that's how you do it, and otherwise it's not good. And I don't believe that. So
yeah, I agree, because otherwise it's not a business.
Yeah.
And if it's not a business, then what is it? A hobby. And that,
my hobby has supported my family for what, 11 years now, and so then I go like, so what do you want to call it then? Right? That's my business. It paid for everything. So what is it then?
Yeah, that's right.
You still want to call it a hobby? You still want to say that what you do is not real work? Of course it is real work,
Absolutely.
But it's real play, or I can say it's real play, and you can live like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, why can't we play and work? Why can't they be, why can't we have them together? They complement one another. Isn't that ideally what we're looking for is perfection, which is not real. But for me, when I get to sit in the studio and I get to create things, yes, I'm working, and yes, I'm fulfilling orders, and yes, it's serious business. It is serious business, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoy. It's magical. And so the two things are not mutually exclusive. They're mutually inclusive if we allow them to be. And then you're in business. Then you're literally in business, aren't you?
Yeah. So if we play with magic the whole day, what are we then? Are we little witches?
Oh, please, can we be?
I don't mind. Hey.
Maybe that's what we need to call this, little witches.
Little witches. I don't know what we call ourselves. These are just our thoughts. These are just our musings. These are just the things that keep our minds busy. I'm curious. I'm just a forever curious person. I don't know about you. I think that if you lose your curiosity, then it's boring, right? It's boring.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like curiosity and awe, those things, you never lose the wonder. The wonder of there's so much to be that is wonderful, full of wonder. The world is full of wonder. So keeping that curiosity front and center and leading from that place for your own life it's a beautiful place to be. And choosing that, again, we come back to choosing that and trusting that that's a valid way to live your life, a valid way to run your business, a valid way to be in the world. It's a beautiful way to be in the world. It's magical.
Yeah. And I have the door open to attract that as well. Like, I believe in the law of attraction. I think that if you begin with being, working on how to feel happy, that you will attract more happiness. You will attract more things that make you happy. And so, and then it becomes that spiral, because then you touch others that also will feel happier because they're in your space. And then they will also touch others that they, it's like that. It's an upward spiral then, isn't it? Or a bubble that grows. So definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's an expansive way to be. It is expansive, and it's inclusive, and it's there for everyone. For sure. Yeah.
And it's a nice thing. It's very much like being creative, because the more you create, the more you creative you become. It never ends. It's a never ending source, really, creativity, right? The more you use creativity, the more you get, the more you receive, the more you can do, the more you can. It's not like, oh, I've used up my creativity for today. You can't say that. You can, oh, I've used up all my creativity for my lifetime. No, there's always more. Like, it grows, right? The more creative you are, the more creative you become. It expands. It expands.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because people have got quite preconceived ideas about what creativity actually is. And they think, well, if I'm not very skilled at painting or sculpting, or I don't make jewelry, or I'm no good with ink, I can't be creative. I'm not creative. And I actually had this discussion with a lady who is an accountant, and I said to her, she said, "Oh, I'm not creative." I said, "Well, actually, yes, you are. You love numbers, you love those structures, and you can see the beauty and see the creativity in that. And so, yes, you are creative. It's just you're creative with different elements and different way than I personally am.
Did she see it? Did she understand?
She did. She actually did. She hadn't actually allowed herself to perceive herself as being a creative person before. And I mean, you can be a gardener or a builder or a mechanic. You can be a mum or a dad, a teacher, a nurse. It doesn't matter, anything.
Yeah.
The creativity it's how you see yourself in those roles. It's not the roles themselves.
Creativity is your mindset.
Yeah.
It's like thinking outside of the box. Again, then it's the same. Like, you don't always have to only follow the steps that are the path that is well trodden.
Yeah.
No? You can think about other ways to, like, here's the thing, if you have to go from your home to another place and you want to drive and there is a road closure, then you'll find another way around it, right? So there's another way around it. And that is with most things. Well, with everything, you can always find another way around it to get to where you want to go to. And so that is just creative thinking outside of the box, finding a solution for something that is temporarily closed or temporarily not available. Then you find a solution. Well, so you can always find another way in your mind as well. If you have a dream or a goal or whatever, something that you want to do or to go to or to reach or whatever, if one way doesn't work, then there will be other ways that work. You just have to go there, and you have to open yourself up, open your mind up to see other options, other possibilities. Yeah, I think that is also what running a creative business or running a business creatively, you can run a very boring, well, I don't know what is a boring business, but you can run a very boring business or whatever in a creative way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there you go. So everybody can be creative.
Yeah. If they want to see themselves that way, if they choose that pathway, everybody can see themselves as creative and have creative businesses, creative careers, creative lives. Yeah.
So there you go. Everybody's creative. Everybody can be creative. we are, and we're loving it. But then we do have challenges as well, and that's why we chat, right? And that's why we chat, because it does help to have somebody like a sounding board, right? It does help that it helps to have a good ear to listen to your story or to see something from a different perspective, because sometimes you can go and stare at something and go blind staring there. And then if if you have a guide or friend or a mentor or a teacher or whatever, to help you or to see, to have another look, just have another look and have another talk it through.
I often think of the story of Vasily Kandinsky, and he was widely renowned as the father of modern art. This amazing Russian painter,
Yeah.
his work is abstract, beautiful, beautiful abstract work. But he was painting one of his most famous paintings one particular day, and he was so upset with it. He was so distraught with it. He ended up throwing it in a corner and walking out. And one of his very best friends, another artist, he came in and he saw the space and he went, "I'm going to clean up for Kandinsky. I'm gonna tidy things up." And when Kandinsky came back into his art studio and came back into the space after his friend had cleaned up and he'd calmed down a little bit, that particular painting, his friend had picked it up and he'd tidied in and around it and he'd put it back, but he'd put it back upside down. And it was sitting there, and Kandinsky went, "Oh my God, that's it. There it is." And it was just that he needed. It was that relationship between the two of them, that trust between the two of them, but to be able to see things in a different way. Exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same painting, exactly the same situation, but just the gift of being able to see it in a different way. Wow. And like I often think about that, because I think being in a creative business and being in business on your own can be a really lonely place. It can be very isolating, and it can be very difficult. You get so insular. You can get so insular, and it can be really difficult to sort of step outside of that. And that's one of the things I value most about our friendship, is being able to trust you, so that I can say, "I'm having this issue. These things are happening with my business, with my life, with my art, my creativity," and you can help me to see it in another way.
Yeah, flip it over. Like I mean, I love that that you talk about this story with Kandinsky, because I am, I don't know if the last couple of months, ever since my partner made his transition to the other realm, I've been looking at a lot of things and just looking at the flip side, the flip side of things. Like, this is how I see it. This is how I experience it. This is the choice that I normally would make. Now let's look at it from the other side. Like, how can I flip this? Can I flip this? Can I flip this? Because I need to recalibrate a lot of things in my life, or I feel like I need to, look at things and reorganize my life, and look at flip sides. Like, look at the flip side and see, turn it upside down, turn the sentence, play with the words in a sentence. Like, if you say something in a sentence, can you mix up the words? Does it make a completely different meaning? Does it or does it actually bring us the same meaning by saying something in a different way? And it's like all those kind of things. I'm musing about a lot of things. It's that, like, my mind is constantly busy recalibrating, reflecting, looking at it in a different way, or trying to. And then it's really good to have another person to speak with, like you. Definitely.
It really does. It really does help, doesn't it, to be able to have that sounding board.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of people forget that we, even though, as you said, we are both creatives, and it can be very lonely sometimes, or we can be alone working, because I prefer to work by myself when I create. And I also, of course, record things for my workshops and stuff like that. But when I create for myself, I prefer to be by myself. And I'm very much an introvert. I think if I want to, I can even be a hermit easily. And simply because this is also my business, I need to have, like, it's easy maybe if you are a hermit and you just live in a cave, you don't need anything, if you have a tree with apples outside of your cave, but we live in our modern society, and we live in this modern world. So being all by yourself all the time, it doesn't work. At some point you have to go out. At some point and as an introvert, it's so difficult sometimes to make that. How much time, it's just so good to have somebody to talk with, and talk things through and talk things over, and have them give you that other viewpoint that really helps you make that next step. We so often forget that, I think.
I agree. And it's also, I think the other side of that is it's really valuable to not just surround yourself in people who see the world the same way you do. It's really important that if you're going to consciously step outside of your hermithood, which I'm very much a hermit myself.
Your hermit hole.
Yeah, I'm a hermit hole.
Oh, well, we've got hobbit holes here, don't we?
When you do choose to step outside of that safe space, that you don't just immediately go and look for people who are validating your position, because you want to be challenged. It's really important to be challenged, and in a supportive, kind, empathic way. You don't necessarily need to be aggressively challenged, but to have somebody who can go, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but have you thought about it this way, or what about this, or
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think maybe as creatives, we're scared of that constructive criticism because when you put your whole soul and being into your art, it's really, really hard sometimes to extract yourself, to extract your identity from that and allow your art to be something external to you. And so when you've got your identity tied up in your art or even in your business, to have somebody come in and it feels like it's a personal criticism. It's not a personal criticism. It's an observation. And so allowing yourself to invite people into your world to offer that gift of constructive criticism is just that. It's a gift. It really is a gift. And if you can choose to see it that way, then you can take your ego and you can park your ego over here and go, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not my art. I'm a big part of my art, but I'm not all of my art. My art is not all of me.
Yeah. True. So true. Yeah. And I love that. I love that. And I think it is super important. Yeah.
I think it's I think about that a lot, actually. I think about I put so much of myself into what I do, but if I put all of me into what I do, then what's left? Sometimes you've got to sort of untangle yourself a little bit from that and be able to say, there's so much more to me than my art.
That's where boundaries come in then, right? Boundaries. They're also, I don't know about you, but they're really difficult or challenging for me to keep to my personal boundaries. So this is the thing, like I'm an introvert, and as I said, I love to create by myself. So it's very easy also to just lock all the doors around me. And then I have all my boundaries. I have all my boundaries because there's nobody coming in, right? But as I said, we need the outer world as well, because this is where we live and this is where we participate in. So we need to, and then it is like, do you open the right door for others to come into your space, or for yourself to step out? Because sometimes you can cross your own boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
So again, like I like the open mind, the metaphor with all the doors inside of me that I can open to allow source energy to come through me and all that, that is easy with open doors within me. But then the boundary doors that are around me, they are a whole other story, right? Which one do I open and which one do I choose to go through? And so those are the boundaries, like what do you need and what do you want to allow? How far? That's a tricky thing. That can be a tricky thing. It's like that proverbial, I don't know if that's an English proverb actually, like if you give in Dutch anyway, it is like if you give somebody a finger, they'll take your whole hand, kind of thing.
Yeah, we've got a phrase, if you give someone an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah, something, well, that's similar. Yeah, that's similar. So it's very difficult. I've struggled with that. Like I've given too much of myself simply because I thought that was the only valuable thing I could offer when after the earthquakes, so much was, we were financially so strapped. So it was like, oh, well, I've got plenty of time, so I'll give my time. and then I would just give it away so freely. But time is actually the one thing that you cannot purchase.
That's
You know?
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then after a while, I started to go like, I'm giving all my time to everybody and I have none for myself. None for myself. And then it's like, I always need to hit rock bottom before I start to do something about it. And it's like, you know, have you ever heard about self-love? Well, maybe it's about time that you give yourself some time, you know, it's like that. And because I was totally just, you know, ignoring myself. And those are then, you know, those are boundaries. You need to play with that. You need to play with that, right? Yeah. And I think in a creative business, we are so often approached simply because the value of creativity is so hard. You know, how do you value a creation?
Yeah.
How do you put a value on whatever you create, right? And then it is like people say like, oh, well, you can, you know, come and hang it into my place for free. It's great exposure. It's like, doesn't really pay my bill, you know?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's such a, we actually touched on this last week when we were talking last week about this perception of value, and like, and we haven't really probably got time to go into it in depth today, but
we'll do it another time. We'll do it another time.
Yeah, we will do it another time. But I think it's a really, really important point that you've put up because you know that perception of value, that the greatest commodity in your own business is your own time.
Yeah.
And it is you're so right. It's the one thing that's always undervalued, and the one thing that you cannot ever get back. You can't pay for it. You can't pay enough for it, and you can never get it back. And you know, people like you talked, you know, earlier on about the videos that I put up showing how I make some of the jewelry. And people always say to me, they always comment on them and they go, oh my God, you make it look so easy. It's like, I've put hundreds and hundreds of hours into mastering that craft so that you can look at it and in a 60-second video and go, it looks really easy. And so how do you price that? How do you value that? Well, you know, I can put a monetary value on an hourly rate, blah, 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 blah. But actually, it's way more than that. There's so much more to it than that. And so the perception of value it's a huge issue. And I think we really should come back to this topic.
Yeah, we have to do a separate one.
We need a whole video just on that perception of value and how do you price art? Like what does that even mean? That's such a massive thing, and it's so tied into the boundaries that you talk about, and that concept of yourself in the art. It's all tied in, and it's almost, I don't have an answer. I have some ideas, but I don't have an answer, because to extract yourself from that is, I actually don't know. I certainly haven't been successful in doing it.
We do a separate one on that. We do a separate one on valuing art and creations, because that definitely needs its own container, for sure. I just wanted to mention this because of the boundary issue. But again, so like you said, it is all connected, right?
Yeah.
Creating. Your love for yourself, your open-mindedness, your creative, you know, your out-of-the-box thinking, your time management, if you will, like everything is connected. Really, everything is connected. So again, like how we are all connected in this tapestry. In your personal life, work situation, everything is also connected. I always talk about it that when I talk about my life and my work, it is connected. It's one. For me, my life and my work is one. My work is my life. My life is my work. It is one. I don't close the door and say, oh, work's done and now I'm, you know, it never happens. I questioned about it. I questioned myself about it, like, why can I not just be happy with a job that I can shut the door and I can just lie on the couch all weekend or something? But it's just not me. It's simply because for me, my work is my life is my work. It needs to be. Otherwise I would not enjoy my work. If I do work where I close the door and then completely remove myself and say, huh, you know, that would not be something that I enjoy doing then, obviously. And there we go. First of all, I want to make myself happy. So I need to be doing something that I love.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then work is life, and life is work, and it's all connected again. And there we go. Yeah.
There we go. Background and circle. Background and
spirals. If somebody just watches this, they think that we're loopy.
We are, I think. There's an element of that too, I think. Definitely.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Otherwise, we can't exist.
Exactly. Well, that might be quite a good place to sort of tie it up a little bit. Coming back round full circle and talking about spirals and tapestries and strings and magic once again.
Yes.
Maybe it's a really good place where we can tie it up.
This is fun. This is fun. So yeah, we will do more. If only for ourselves. If only for our own little library. You know. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like it's a video journal for us, eh? It's a place where we can kind of record what we think, how we're thinking, where we're at, and if it's of benefit to other people, awesome. But I know 100% it's beneficial for me, and I hope it's beneficial for you too. And,
of course.
And really that's the whole purpose, isn't it?
I know that's the reason why we do these talks, and I love. We don't script them, so there you go.
No, that was obvious,
whatever comes up. So it's whatever we start talking about, and it just organically goes somewhere.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So right. Well, it's haere rā from me, and
see you next time. Can't wait.